Good evening, everybody. On behalf of the Asian Literary Society and on my behalf as an administrator of ALS and coordinator of this session, I, Dr. Aparna Bhavre, extend a warm welcome to our eminent panelists and to the audience members who have joined this panel discussion entitled Charting the Course of Kidlit, that is being conducted as a part of the third ALS Lit Fest 2021. We have with us today an impressive panel of experts, each one an expert in writing for children. Without much ado, let me introduce our panelists for this day. We shall begin with Madam Shantini Govindan. Shantini is a widely published, award-winning author of children's literature in English. She has written over 50 books for children of all ages, and her work includes poetry, picture books, and short stories. She has authored and edited several English language readers that are widely used in schools across our country. Shantini has been awarded 2 Government of India fellowships in literature for research projects on children's literature in India and a 2-year Lok Sabha fellowship by the Speakers Research Initiative of the Parliament of India for a research project on how to educate children and young people in India about the role and function of our parliament with the help of children's literature. Welcome, Shantini.
Thank you.
We move on to our second panelist, Kiran Babal. Kiran is a graduate in psychology, and she has a great flair for writing both in English and Hindi, and she is a freelance writer and poet. Her forte is storytelling and writing stories and poems for children. She is also an educator, voiceover artist, drama artist for All India Radio, and she excels at crafts. The very first story that she wrote bagged the first prize in a humor story competition. Since then, her stories have been published in newspapers, magazines, and bulletins, and she has 13 children's books, and several anthologies of short stories for children to her credit. She has also contributed to poetry anthologies, including one compiled and edited by her for ALS. In 2018, she was awarded the Sagar Memorial Award for Children's Literature. Welcome, Kiran. We now move on to our third speaker. Welcome, Dr. Sudha. Dr. Sudha Subramaniam has a PhD degree in Commerce and Management, and she is a professor at the M.L. Dahanukar College of Commerce in Mumbai. She has several research publications to her credit, including award-winning ones. Today, Sudha is with us in her role as a creative writer. She has written articles for leading newspapers and editions, a contemporary series based on Vikram and Betal stories for the Bhavan's Journal, a book of poems published by the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, and a book on the 100 greatest wealth creators of India. She has also several awards and accolades to her credit in the creative sphere, including the 2020 Wordsmith Award and the 2021 Sagar Memorial Award for Children's Literature awarded by ALS. Welcome, Sudha. We move on to our last panelist, Meena Mishra. She really needs no introduction, but let me introduce her anyway. Meena is a teacher, educator, award-winning writer and poet, editor, publisher, and a social worker. Meena's poems, novels, short stories, and book reviews have appeared in newspapers, national and international journals and magazines, and over 100 books and anthologies. She has written 3 books and is presently working on the 4th, which is a collection of short stories. As the founder and CEO of the Impish Lass Publishing House, ILPH, which is her brainchild, she has enabled over 500 students, teachers, and professionals across the world to become published writers and poets. In the 2.5 years of its existence, the ILPH banner has brought out over 100 books and several editions of the Young Bards book for students and teachers. Meena has won several prestigious awards, including the ALS 2019 Wordsmith Award for Short Stories and a number of accolades in the fields of education as well as literature. Welcome, Meena.
Thank you so much.
Let us now begin this panel discussion. As I mentioned, the title is Charting the Course of Kidlit. The first point I want to bring up is, we have all been kids who have thrived on books. Today, we recognize the vital importance of children's literature in both tickling the imagination as well as molding young minds. When writers create stories or poems for children, I think, they have to reach into the recesses of their own childhood memories, think like the child they once were, and write in a way that a child can relate to. Do you agree with this statement? I will ask this question to each of you by turn, beginning with Shantini.
Thank you. A very good evening to all those who have signed in to Facebook to listen to this panel discussion. Good evening to my esteemed panelists and also to Dr. Aparna Bagwe. As a writer, I write realistic stories and I also write fantasies. And for both, I dig deep into my own memories as a child. When I write fantasy, I write about things that I enjoyed and I remembered, like the Tooth Fairy, Santa Claus, dragons, imaginary creatures like gnomes and elves. When I write realism, then I look back at the memories that I had as a child. One of my stories, which is now used widely in schools, is called I'm Not Scared Anymore. And it's about a child who's afraid of the dark. It was inspired by my own sister, who even to this day is petrified of the dark. This story had wide acceptance among children because everybody felt a little nervous to acknowledge that they're afraid of the dark and were happy to hear that others have the same fear. I also wrote stories about bullying among children and how teachers feel when the students bully them. One of the stories that I wrote was called A Spot of Bother, and I think we will all resonate with it. It was about a teenage girl who got a pimple before a very important event. And even though it was just a small pimple, she thought it was a humongous spot which everyone was looking at. I think as growing up, we've all worried about our appearance and about sudden pimples. I've also written a story about a girl who was wearing high heels for the first time. She couldn't walk, so she borrowed her elderly grandfather's walking stick so that she could practice walking, but forgot to return it to her grandfather. So many of the stories were written from memories that I had as a child. And I think we all stories, Charles Dickens wrote from his own childhood. Oliver Twist and David Copperfield mirrors his own hardship. Roald Dahl's Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory was inspired by the chocolates that he used to get as a boarder from a chocolate factory that was nearby. So I think all writers delve into their own memories when they start writing.
Thank you, Shantini. I'd like to ask the same question to Kiran now.
Yes. So I'll say yes, absolutely so. It is the starting point. In fact, this was the first thing I learned when I joined a workshop of story writing. And I was told that if you want to write children's stories, go deep into your childhood, remember a strong event or an event that you remember the most and bring it out and you will write the story. So when I peeped into my childhood, the events came so vivid that I wrote them very playfully. For me, it became a game then. Then little did I realize that my first story that I wrote, it will win the first prize in humor section. So my story, Naya Mehman, got the first prize. And that was not looking back after that at all. So this became my benchmark to write stories that going peeping into your own childhood. So, but as we get the hang of it, then the doors of imaginations open and we get connected with our environment, with people around, and then or reading a book or something, then they trigger our imagination. So for me, the benchmark has always been to write, go into your childhood and get a peek of the peep of a story. So I have written about myself, I have written about my nani, I have written about my daughter, my son, my brother, so many episodes, but they all, I could write it very easily because they were the realities. But each one to themselves, there are many children who are more into imaginations, so they can write fantasy stories easily. So with me, this worked better.
Thank you, Kiran.
Thank you.
We'll move on to your ideas, Sudha.
Thank you so much, Dr. Aparna Bagwe, and a very good evening to all my colleague panelists. Now, as a child, I played on the golden sands of the Meenachal riverbank that flowed beside our traditional house in Kerala. Over the years, the bank has shrunk in size due to dredging of the soil and the ecosystem. The flora and fauna are not as luxuriant and abounding as then. So, within my heart, I always relate to nature's bounty, beauty, and try to bring out the pristine beauty and unfathomable depth of creation in my imagination. The seeking mind tries to imprint the joys of childhood, tries to deal with the sorrows, and tries to relive beautiful childhood through writings. Through time, experience is the greatest teacher, and definitely reading stories empowers us to learn through the experiences of others. When I sometimes reflect on how I could have enjoyed some childhood moments better, how I could have done things differently and better if I got back that time, which is now past, I try to project this in the character of the story. In the story, The Secret Land of Corintha, I have written, the caves seemed to lead further down, and as Ranjani slowly made her way further along the coursing stream, she could hear the sound of ducks quacking. There was a pond in the center, and the cave went further inside. Huge stones on either side gave a firm foothold and provided a natural seat to relax and watch the ducks. Suddenly, two graceful swans emerged from a curve at one end of the pool and seemed to glide along the water. As she watched, the swans grew bigger in size. A boat came out of nowhere, and the swans hooked themselves onto the boat. The swans came up to Ranjani and seemed to be calling her into the boat. Seated on a wooden bench across the center of the boat, Ranjani watched with ecstasy as the swans took her riding. So, I am constantly writing what I see and picturize in my mind.
Thank you, Sudha. We'd like to move on to Meena now.
Thank you so much, ALS, Dr. Aparna Bagwe, and all the panelists. Yes, Aparna, I do agree with your statement. The first book written by me, The Impish Lass, is a collection of childhood memories. Most of them are childhood memories. And in the preface, I have already written it, that deep within all of us resides an impish lass or lad. Someone who loves breaking rules, bunking classes, loitering around, enjoying with friends, visiting different places, wandering like a free soul in the open fields, climbing trees, accepting challenges, taking risks, discovering small delights of life, appreciating beauty, experimenting new things, and above all, keeping secrets. So after reading our story, the children should feel that it is their story, their neighbor's story, probably their sibling stories. These stories should make them feel happy, sad, crazy, relaxed about their lives. And this is how we can connect to them, diving into their childhood.
Wonderful. So nicely put by all of you in turn. Now, my next question to all of you is another interesting one. See, Indian writing for children is replete with lots of stories based on mythology, as well as a rich body of Indian literature. Now, we also have had access to Western literature, nice, interesting adventure stories, books by Enid Blyton, and even comic books. Which amongst these, or something that I have not named perhaps, was your muse, the impetus that nudged you to write for children? We'll begin with Shantini again.
Thank you. I think I love animals, and I liked stories where there are talking animals. So I think I was quite deeply influenced by the Panchatantra stories. Panchatantra, as we all know, was started, it was written by Pandit Vishnu Sharma to educate King Amar Shakti's 3 naughty princes. So he wanted a way to teach the children, but in such a way that it wouldn't be preachy and it would catch their interest. So he decided to use animal stories. So there are talking foxes and crocodiles and monkeys. So I was captivated by that. So I also do write a lot of stories that have got animals, talking animals. I was also influenced deeply by Indian mythology. Our gods and goddesses are very human. They have characteristics just like us. They are greedy. Sometimes they are lazy. They are forgetful. They do things which they should not do. They make mistakes. So I like that. And many of the gods, the Vahanas, are also imaginary creatures, like the Makara Vahana, and they are half human, half mythical creatures, and say half crocodile. There is a creature called the Purushamriga, which you find in front of South Indian temples, which is like a sphinx, which is an imaginary creature. So those are the things that captured my attention. And I think I built on my writing career was started by reading those stories and assimilating and getting ideas from them.
Very nice. Thank you. We'll move on to Kiran.
Yes, thank you, Aparna. First of all, very candidly, I confess that I read very few storybooks as a child. My Western connect to the storybooks has been only through school textbooks, because I was in a convent. So whatever I read over there, whether Alice in Wonderland or Gulliver in the Land of Lilliput, all this comes from my storybooks. There we had moral science class, and I read and heard Bible over there, which had a great impact on me. Now, apart from this, what I remembered most, I feel I'm very lucky to have seen the play Panchatantra live on theatre. Vishnu Sharma had performed this, and as with the whole thing of the animal world, and I saw them all as a child, and it had a great impact on me. That's why I love animals. So most of the stories with children also love animals, so we do that. And we used to go to Ram Leela every year. My parents used to take me, so that had a great impact. My father read me Punjab folklore that was written in Urdu language, and I was very fascinated when he used to read those Urdu texts, and the story's name was Puran Bhagat. So I can associate with that, with the Western connect, the stepmother syndrome of Snow White and the 7 dwarfs and all that. And so this story also dealt with those stepmother and the Puran Bhagat being the elder son and the younger queen and the elder queen. So all these things have impacted me a lot. I like to write realistic stories with a bit of imaginations. So that is what I have written for Children's World. I have written Nani Ke 2 Minute, which was with Ratna Sagar. So whatever triggers my heart, and actually the realities, they touch me. Thank you.
Thank you, Kiran. We move on to Meena.
To myself, right? Sudha, my turn, madam?
Meena. Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. We move on to Sudha.
So thank you so much for that question. So yes. Thinking it over, the impetus that nudged me, churned my thought processes, and set me writing way back as a school child, when I learned the story of the villager from Baramulla who averted the bid to capture Srinagar by his well thought out reply to the enemies, which sent them on the wrong path. What he thought in 2 seconds comprised 6 pages of story. That made me realize the power of the human mind, of the thought process. In 5 minutes, I can think pages and pages. The storybooks like Alice in Wonderland, Shakespeare stories, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Gulliver's Travels, Robinson Crusoe unlock different perceptions and depths. The stories of the Arabian Nights, where they traveled on the magic carpet, the mythological stories of India, they formed a pathway to think and create stories with a natural and extempore flow. Our ancient Indian stories are very unique. The Hitopadesha, the Panchatantra, the mythological stories, where every story has a connection to a previous birth or to a past incident or an incident in heaven, which is a reason for the current story, is very specific and distinctive to Indian stories. Such a storyline requires so much attention to detail. Mastery of such a story is itself an art. I also correlate to the contemporary. So when I wrote the series Vikram and Betal for the Nandana section of the Bhavan's journal, the questions asked by Betal were not the stories of kings and queens, but questions related to some of the problems and questions of the current generation. For example, a question asked by Betal to Vikram after the story was whether a child who was in examination should stop to look after his mother, who is extremely unwell, or whether he should go to write the examination. And the best answers would get a prize. It would be published next week. So the child who got the prize, he had written that the child should connect with the doctor, give medicines, then go to write the examination, for he is the future on which he is banking. So that's
Meena now.
Thank you, Aparna. As far as Indian literature is concerned, as a young kid, I used to read Chacha Chaudhary. I don't know how many of you know about this Chacha Chaudhary. So there was this wise old man with white mustache and with sharp intellect. And then there was this very tall and robust Sabu, an inhabitant from Jupiter. Okay, and he would give Chacha Chaudhary an ideal company, a combination of wisdom and strength to tackle all the problems. So the way it was done by Pran, conceived by Pran, and the tagline of that was Chacha Chaudhary ka dimag computer se bhi tez chalta hai. So imagine as young kids, we knew, okay, fine, there is something called computer that works very fast, and one's brain can work faster than that. So that was a fascination. Then Rabindranath Tagore's Kabuliwala fascinated me a lot, wherein this small little girl, Minnie, she talks and talks and talks. And then there are two fathers, a rich father and a poor father. And all that matters is your feelings towards your child. So that is how beautifully handled by Rabindranath Tagore. Then if we talk about foreign literature, Rudyard Kipling's Jungle Book, where we have Mowgli, Baloo, Bagheera, Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland, all these characters fascinated me. And all of them helped me create a world of birds and fantasy around me, wherein I still live.
That's so sweet. I think a lot of us are nature lovers here. We'll move on to the third question, which is not really a question. I would like to request each one of you in turn. I know that all of you are fantastic writers with unique signature styles of your own. I would like you to read out either a poem or a small passage from a story written by you, so that our audience can enjoy the flavor of your writing. Santini?
Thank you. So I'm going to read a poem that I've written, Fox by Those Stripes. It is now prescribed as a poem reading in English language readers. You can see animated versions of it if you go onto YouTube. It's called Fox by Those Stripes. At a waterhole in a jungle far away, a fox met a zebra one bright summer's day. "Mr. Zebra," said the fox, "I have a question for you, and I hope that you will try and answer it too. It's a question that has puzzled me from the time we first met. I haven't been able to think up the answer myself yet. Do you have a black body, Mr. Zebra, and are your stripes white? Or is your body all white, covered with stripes that are black as night? After the zebra had refreshed himself with a cool drink, he creased his brow and began to think. When at last he spoke, his words were wise. "Mr. Fox," he said, "let me give you some advice. Why do you worry whether my stripes are black or white? To me, it doesn't matter. They seem just right. And beneath all my stripes, Mr. Fox, can't you see that the creature there is just the same me?" So I wrote this poem mainly so that children will understand that it doesn't really matter what your external appearance is. It doesn't matter if you are a black animal with white stripes or a white animal with black stripes. I was puzzled, by the way, whether a zebra is black with white stripes or vice versa. The important thing is that the creature within was just the same. So this was a subtle way of teaching, and I think most children like it when there's a little humor and you keep the lesson short. Thank you.
Very true. Kiran?
I really love that poem.
Thank you so much.
Very nice poem. Yeah, very nice poem.
Yeah.
See, as I said, writing has been an acquired art for me. And this was my attending the workshops opened me to the world of story writing. So I will talk about my very first story that got me the prize. So it has been published by Vikas Publication by the title Padhenge aur Hasenge. So here how the story goes. So it's a Saturday in a home. There's the protagonist, that is me. And I'm a small child. It's a holiday for me, and father is to go a Saturday, half day. He has to go to the bank, and I plead him, "Papa, please take me with you. I don't want to stay at home." So he agrees, and he takes me to the bank. And I sit there and look around here and there. People come and say hello to me, and I'm very happy, feeling important. Then there is one person, Mr. Verma. He comes up to my father and says, "Mr. Rana, what is something new about today? Tell me something new. What's new going on in your life?" So my father had very wittingly, he said, "Don't you know, Mr. Verma, there is a Naya Mehman in our house?" And the man was all, smiling and surprised and, "Okay, Naya Mehman. So you did not tell me this news earlier. Now next week I am going to come to your house. I will have sweets. I will congratulate Bhabhi ji, and I will see the Naya Mehman too." And there next week, Mr. Verma arrives to our place in white pant, white shirt, and a red hat. So, in the house, everything was very well planned. My mother, we had a baby toy, which looked exactly like a baby made of paper mache. So mom had wrapped a towel around it and given it to me to hold it by my shoulder over here, and told me that when we call you, you please come in the drawing room with the baby. I said, "Okay." And in all this, I felt very important, very important. So as Mama went inside, Mr. Verma was very happy. "Namaskar, Bhabhi ji, congratulations, congratulations. Ab to main mithai khaunga hi khaunga, bahut dher sari mithai khaunga." So my mother brought whole lot of goodies and tea. Please have it, please have it. And he very happily polished them and then said, "Ab to mila dijiye, jara naye mehman se mila dijiye." So my mother called me, "Munna, please andar aa jao, come inside." And I very nicely, with small steps, I went inside and came near the person, and he was so happy, elated. He took out 20 tenors, naye note, 20 tenors ke, and he was waving in the air, come, let me see. And I gave the baby, in that giving and taking, the towel unwrapped itself and the toy baby emerged. And he said, "Huh? Dhokha? Ye le lo tum." And he actually threw the child, and I took the baby. So, and then he's looking at his notes, what to do. Should I put it back in my pant, or should I give it to the child, or what to do? So he gave those notes to those rupees to me. Ye lo baby, ye tum hi le lo, tumhare liye hi hai ye. And then he said, Rana Sahab, aapne mera bada ullu banaya. So, but he enjoyed everything. And that is the moment which I mean, this story, this was because I was part of that story. So I relived it in the most easiest manner, I would say. So, kaise mil gaya prize mujhe bhi nahi malum. So here it was the story.
The storyteller in you comes out. Thank you so much. We'll move on to Sudha and the passage that you'd like to read.
Yeah. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Asian Literary Society, and everyone on the panel. So this is a book of poems titled The Dawn of Creation, published by Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan. It was director Dhiru Mehta who said that this is a very good manuscript for publication. And I'm so thankful for this opportunity today. So the poem is titled The Beggar Musicians. Two haggardly looking people, a husband and a wife, they dragged their feet behind them along the roads of life. He played the rebeck, she played the harp, and together they lightened the burden of man. Sweet music spread its warp through his rebeck and her harp. No need to walk, so no need for feet to walk the paths that music built. These two musicians, they went from street to street, and like the house that but for the stilt would have long submerged neath the water, they, but for their music and the few coins it brought, would have long left behind them 2 bundles of flesh and bones. But Lady Talent dwelt in them, and life's battles they with music fought. Ask not why the same lady had not begotten them riches any, for no fault of their melody, but hitches many, the greatest all of which, being the one of being born poor. A few, though, may help to stitch their torn garment of life. Those in garments rich, they do not like to stitch. Many a needle has thus become rusty, more than a hand lies idle. Nevertheless, what arrests me are those tired hands that toil in vain through pain. Thank you.
Very nice, very nice. We move on to Meena now.
Thank you, Aparna. I'm just going to read out a short story of mine, Frame It Right. That is about Telegram. So a few years back, I had a student in my school, an autistic child. I had gone to her class as a proxy teacher, and I had just narrated this tale to them. And whenever she would see me, she would come running to me and tell me, "You are the teacher who said that story about Telegram?" And I was like, God, an autistic child remembers. So this is very close to my heart. It was a customary day, as usual. Till went to school, but the scenario was absolutely altered when she returned home. The first astonishment was to find the door ajar. There was an alarming stillness in the house. Mother was sniveling. Father was sitting on the couch with his hands covered, trying to hide his feelings. Something had gone terribly off-beat. But what? Mother handed over the telegram to her that read, "Mother died, come soon." Those were the days when telephone was not a commonplace miracle. Receiving a telegram meant that the unpleasant incident must have taken place 3 days back. Till's father was the eldest son of the family. If there was one person his mother could rely upon, it was him. He was not by his mother's side when she breathed her last. It was saddening beyond belief. It was an unexpected blow for the family. They had to set on a journey to their native place, Pindaruch. Her siblings were fed. The rest of the cooked meal, milk, vegetables were given to immediate neighbors. There was no need of withdrawing money from the bank, as the neighbors had already pulled in cash that they had at home. Till always wondered how all her neighbors managed to throng in and offer help in times of difficulty. They had already arranged for a car and a driver for the family, as waiting for the bus would have meant wastage of time. Entire neighborhood was sad. They knew how attached her father was to her granny. Even she loved her granny very much. After a long and exhausting journey, they reached their native place, and the person who was there to welcome them was Til's granny. Til's father was the first one to alight, and to everyone's surprise, the person standing there with water was none other than her granny. The expression that she observed on her father's face was not easy to explain. It was a mixed feeling of joy, wonder, amazement, bewilderment, and surprise. He hugged his mother and burst into tears. Her granny was perplexed, quite unaware of the situation, and didn't know how to react. Later on, the family was informed that the sender of the telegram, who was her father's cousin, had lost his mother. Only if the telegram would have been framed as, "My mother died, come soon," this entire episode of confusion and slip-up could have been avoided.
Very nice.
That's so nice. Words are so important, proper usage, isn't it? It's been really interesting listening to how you all have come to be writers for children. And having done that now, we have a flavor of what makes you write the way you do. I will now touch upon a few serious issues. This time what I'm planning to do is ask a different question to each one of you. And thankfully we are doing good time. So what we can do is, give us a little more detailed answers. I shall begin with Shantini, and I have a separate question for her. In your reckoning, Shantini, the writers of children's books have a vital role to play in molding young minds and in character building. Would you please share your thoughts on this?
Yes, thank you. I write both recreational literature, that is stories and poems which are for entertainment. I also do writing for academic work, for literary readers, for textbooks. I meandered into this purely by chance because some publishers started asking me to use my stories in textbooks, and then it was one or two stories, then the work snowballed. I've worked with pretty much almost every big academic publisher in India. When I started doing academic work, I think I was not aware of how important it actually is. Many of the students, especially those in the state boards, those who live in India does not live in cities. India lives in her villages and in her towns. Many of the children who live in the small towns and in the cities and who have a reader, that is their only connection to literature. The parents are often laborers, or they do not have the money, or they do not even have the knowledge to introduce the child to books. So the stories that they read in the reader and in the school books, these are their introduction to literature, and probably these have a lasting effect on their mind. Like we remember all the small stories and the poems we read when we were very small. So when I write for academic literature and journals, I keep three functions in mind. First, I make sure all my stories are gender sensitive. I make sure that they are very democratic. They do not highlight any religion. In fact, when I write a story, I never even use the word God. I always use the word the creator. And you can call him whatever you like. Whatever name you can give him or her. I only call as the creator. I also make sure that all my writings, when I write, they reflect compassion, tolerance, and do not glorify any kind of violence, either bad words or violent acts. Even though they may be historically correct, I try not to portray these. So, and I have found that this has had a very good impact on children. And I use a lot of stories of people in everyday life who have done extraordinary things. So, and stories that show the power of one. One story that I wrote was of a man who built a forest. He built a forest entirely by himself. We always expect other people to do things for us. So we couldn't do it because there was nobody to help us. There are people who have done things all by themselves. So I try to write stories to inspire children that you don't really need anyone. You just need to do things yourself once you decide. So I think, yes, literature has a very, very important part to play in influencing minds. If we want a society that is democratic, secular, and tolerant, we have to introduce children to literature that mirrors these values: democracy, tolerance, and being secular.
Wonderful. Thank you, Shantini. Now my question for Kiran. Do you think storytelling events for children in either schools or bookstores or anywhere else would get more children interested in books? Now we know that you have a very lively writing and storytelling style. So if you can very briefly give us your recipe for writing a great story.
Yes, it's very important that storytelling comes into the mainstream of schools, libraries, bookstores, everywhere, because it has got it is very important because it acts on the many aspects of the children. When we tell a story, it is the voice modulation. The tone of our voice tells the children, connects the child, whether it is a happy mood or a sad mood or a tense mood or a humor. And if you add props along with them, then it carries a visual appeal also. So it ignites the curiosity of the child. If you read a story and if you enact a story, both will have a different impact. They may not remember the text so much, but if it is enacted, then in the form of a storytelling, then they remember it. The retention is far greater than just reading a story from the book. So I mostly use these stick puppets. Normally, this is a crab and this is a doggy. So I have some glove puppets which I made from the newspaper. I use them to tell my stories. So it is in many schools I have done storytelling using my props, telling my own stories, or I have done these project with the Galgotia Publications. So 13 stories. So Dashavtar I have liked the most. So mostly I have done Dashavtar. There's an NGO where I do storytelling every Thursday and children look forward to it. Now coming to some little tips on writing. So I would say the story is just a triangle. There is an event which is in a form of a seed idea, a thought that is a seed idea. You built it up, character grows, and the problem comes. So that problem expands to its zenith, and the protagonist, the role model is the child. So he's the hero. So he solves the problem and there is a happy ending. So this is a very short capsule of writing a story. Second, I would give a little the bony structure to the story. That is, we give an introduction. We introduce the character right as the story, as the subject matter of the story, and it expands. The problem expands. Then the problem is solved, and there is a happy ending, and the story is made. So then, as we bring in characters associated with the story, whether it is a family member or it is an animal, whatever is related to the story. Like if I've done on a squirrel and I'm walking on the road, I'm in the traffic, then the scene of the traffic comes and the tree comes and the squirrel comes, and that is how the story is made. So it is just that. If we keep these things in the mind, because every story, a problem has to be there to be a good story.
Thank you, Kiran. Moving to you, Sudha. You feel that children's books should be replete with imagery, fantasy, and imagination. How important is this?
Well, this is extremely important. Now, when we write a story, it is much more than an intricate art of interweaving characters with imagination. It is also about creation of life situations with a message. It is about transporting the mind and unraveling new dimensions of thought and outpouring it for the readers. For an avid reader of stories, experiencing the unfolding of intellect, the ability to connect, to remember, to understand not just the unfolding of new experiences and situations, but to feel deep feelings and sentiments, as well as to express with eloquence, will be much greater. For example, usually every child in India knows the story of the great epics like the Ramayana because of very festivals like Ram Navami, Deepavali, and Dasara, which are celebrated across the length and breadth of India and even the world over, are based on the epic. Now, you need to knit the importance of science and technology here. Valmiki was so perfect that he has even mentioned the positions of the stars and the planets of that particular day and the constellations in Ramayana. So NASA and the Indian Institute of Science have been able to scientifically calculate the true historical date of every event in the Ramayana. The Ramayana is much more than a story. It is our intangible wealth, our dance forms, story forms, expressions. Even today, like Ramanand Sagar's Ramayana, there's so much more. It's our intangible wealth. It lives through the centuries. It lives beyond science and technology in the sense that science and technology are but tools to unravel the glory of the Ramayana. So in every age, however advanced science and technology is, the power of the pen, the wealth that a good story contains, remains supreme. Maybe the Snow White hiding with the 7 dwarfs could be discovered with Google search, and maybe King Vikramaditya could reply to the Betal's question by email without opening his mouth. Then the Betal would not go back to the tree. So there could be new ideas and greater imagination compatible with changed surroundings. In the secret land of Corintha, my story reads, when one huge crystal opened from the center to lead on to a bigger stream in a larger cave, Ranjani took out her mobile and clicked the pictures of the colorful gleaming cave walls, the stream and the swans. Suddenly she noticed that the camera was now reflecting an injured radiated turtle in the depths of the water. She held a silver thread, hooking the swans to the boat and yanked them to a stop. Then bending down, she gently picked up the turtle. Yes.
So I'll just remind you that we are running short of time.
Yes, yes. I'm done.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Moving on to Meena. See, you are an author as well as a publisher. My question for you is, does the publishing fraternity provide a platform, or can you provide a platform? Do you provide a platform where young children can communicate to you what kind of books they would love to have written for them or for themselves to write?
Yes, Aparna. The Impishlash Publishing House has a project called the Young Bards Project. Under this project, this is a free publishing project. Under this, we publish educators and students across the world. Almost 300 students and 104 educators have been published under this project. There are some individual projects too. So there is this 8-year-old boy from New Jersey, Mihir. He has written a book on Shivaji that we have published under this free publishing project. We have another student, a grade 10 student from UAE, Arush Kumar, who has written this book, Poetic Anatomy, a collection of poems that is all about biology, all anatomy. Then we have Young Bards Project for teachers, wherein 104 teachers across the country have participated in the project. And let me tell you, these are all free publishing projects. We have Mirror Maze, a grade 11 student from Delhi who has got published under this, Praniti. We have Incomplete Vanities, Arendman Mitibai College student has got published through this. So we have so many Young Bards project. There we have a school wherein almost 800 students have participated. Pradnya Bodhi High School, Goregaon. And this has been edited by Shobha Sagar. Then we have another book, 16 Drops of Ink. Likewise, we have so many students across the globe, not only in India, those who have got published through this Young Bards project. So as a publisher and an educator, I feel that each student who writes or an educator who writes should get a free platform to get published.
That's wonderful. I think you're doing a wonderful job. Thank you. Okay, now we are really very short of time, but before we close, I would definitely want to request you to provide one short and very succinct take-home message, both for children and their parents. We'll begin with Shantini.
I encourage parents to encourage their children to read, because if children are readers, you are giving them a gift for life. A child who is a reader is not only much more well-informed and has a more rounded personality, but the child will never be lonely, because in the pages of the book, he will always be able to interact with people and with other minds. We spend a lot of money on fast food and ice creams. We are very reluctant to buy a book which may be 500 or 700. Remember, when you buy a book, the child can read it many, many times. Every time you read a book, you read it from a different point of view at a different time, and you find new things. Whenever I read my old favorites at different ages, I find different things to marvel at. So encourage your children to read. Thank you.
Kiranji?
Yes. What I would like to say is, in this electronic world where mobile and laptops are in vogue, let us, parents should balance it with mobile as well as the stories. Even if the child is small, or a very small child who even can't even read the book, parents should give the book to the child. Let him touch and feel the book. Tell them the story. Be like grannies. If the parents turn like granny, because the granny era is gone. Now it's a secular families, now nuclear families. So it's the stories, bedtime stories, if they give their time to the children, telling them bedtime stories, that would be a great way to connect the children to the world of books.
Thank you, Kiran. Sudha?
Well, stories are intangible wealth. The intricate interlinking of heart, mind, feelings, and thought can be evoked only with a good story. For children, reading stories and listening to stories is the timeless treasure that can unlock the gateway to greater heights. I would just say readership is the path to leadership. Thank you.
Meena? Thank you.
Thank you so much. The tagline of the Impish Layers Publishing House is, each soul that writes has the right to get published. So this is my message to all the parents and children. Dear parents, please allow your children to write the way they want to. Even you write. Whatever comes to your mind, whenever you are happy, sad, angry, frustrated, write. Instead of screaming, shouting at others. And don't worry about the syntax, about the grammar. All those things can be taken care of later on. But let the thoughts flow. And at that point of time, just write and write and write. And I'm here to publish you.
Wow.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
That's a great encouragement.
What we had hoped for is, if we had time, we were going to take just 2 questions. But what I know is that there are a lot of questions that are there, and I request our panelists to go over the questions later on and respond to them, because that is going to stay here online. So with this, we come to the end of a very interesting and stimulating discussion, where each one of you has shared some gems about your own writing, and some areas, have been highlighted that need attention. I thank each and every one of you, our esteemed panelists, for taking time out of your busy schedule and sharing your thoughts with us today. I would also like to thank our audience for joining in this discussion. Good evening, everybody. Goodbye.
Thank you, Aparna.
Thank you,
for this
Aparna.
opportunity.
Thank you, ALS.
And ALS for this opportunity.
And thank you to all those who have watched us today.
Exactly.
Yes.